Resilience plus Rise, the space where we excavate the extraordinary from the heart of the challenge. I'm your host, Thomas Scaria, and if you're feeling the pull towards a deeper purpose, a more impactful legacy beyond the peaks you have already conquered, you're in the right space. Just just like a 26.2 transformative mile, I explore in my now best selling book, Resilience plus Rise. Life's most significant chapters often begin when we dare to redefine our finish line. And yes, it is available to buy. Today's guest, Daniel MacQueen. Dan has survived two emergency brain surgeries, weeks in coma, and months in a rehab hospital. What he found out along the way might surprise you. There is nothing like a brain injury to refocus the mind. Driven by a positive mindset, Dan battled through the exercises, very painful, to rebuild his life and return to a job he loved. Dan, as he mentions, is very grateful for the doctors who saved him, his community, friends, and family who supported him. Now he wants to pay it forward. The tools that Dan used to build back his life can be used by anyone facing challenges. In this talk, let's get into the conversation and see what Dan has to offer. Dan, welcome to Resilience plus Rise, the podcast.
Thomas, thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So tell me, Dan, you have got quite a powerful story to mention. What happened and what's your current environment like?
Yeah, sure, Thomas. Thank you for asking. So my story takes place back in London in 2014. I was having headaches. They were getting progressively worse after a few weeks, taking painkillers like candy for them as my head was pounding. So on the tube one day, the tube I zigzag around London, lumbering towards Nine Hill Gate tube station on the District line. It's a slow roll at the best of times. Headaches were so bad, my vision turned starry and I saw spots. So it started to fade to black. It's a race to see who could arrive at the station first, me or the blindness. Arrived at Nine Hill Gate tube station, stepped onto the platform, mind the gap, and the lights went out. I couldn't see a thing. So Thomas, I want to ask you, what would you think, what would you feel, what would you do?
I would either go to a doctor or I would go and take some Tylenol or something like that, or maybe take some rest, or maybe I would consider it as my exhaustion, burnout, different options in that way. But
Very well.
nothing further than that.
I'll tell you what I did, Thomas, and that's absolutely nothing. I stood there and I froze like a statue. The station swirling around me. The stale air of the station air is filling my nostrils. I can't see a thing. After the longest few minutes of my life, my vision came back, and I carried on my day. But the next day, I went back to A&E. A&E is accident emergency in the UK, like ER in Canada in the States.
Hmm.
I told them what had happened. You know, what the hell's going on here? I was blind on a tube station in London. This is not normal. What's going on? They ran some more tests, and again, they thought it was vertigo. They sent me home. But they told me if the headaches were to continue, I could always get my eyes checked by an optometrist. Optometrist, that's rather odd, but I'm not a doctor. I don't plan to play one now. Sure, why not? Next day, the headaches came back with a vengeance, and I found myself in Mr. Patel's chair. He was midway through a routine exam when he stops the exam. He excuses himself in the room, and he comes back a few minutes later with a sealed envelope, which he hands to me. He told me to go directly to Moorfield's hospital, which I did. Well, Thomas, it's hell a lie. I stopped at home first to grab a Jack Reacher book by the child, a phone charger, and a bite to eat. Arrived at Moorfield's hospital, handed them the sealed envelope. They were in the same test there again. Then escalated to Charing Cross Hospital. We're getting somewhere. I'm thinking, this is positive. This is a good thing. Now, it turns out, Thomas, I had a dangerous buildup of pressure in my brain caused from a non-cancerous cyst in my pineal gland. Turns out I required emergency brain surgery tomorrow.
Ouch.
Turns out my world would change altogether. After a frantic back and forth with folks in Canada, the last text message of Mom she reads, "I'll see you soon, Mom. Think I'll have a new haircut next time I see you. Love, Dan." So Mom's in the air to London on June 21st, 2014. I'm on the operating table. Something goes horribly wrong. I have a massive bleed in the brain, a brain hemorrhage. The cyst burst when they operated. Mom lands and finds I'm in critical condition. So in a coma for 4 weeks. Wasn't out of consciousness for months after this. Things were pretty dicey, touch and go. When all was said and done, I was learning how to walk, talk, and smile again. That's where my story kicks off, Thomas.
Okay. And then what happens after that?
Well, I woke up 4 weeks later after the coma. Mom, dad, and brother on the bed. I'm trying to talk, but I can't talk. The tracheotomy had fried my vocal cords. So he would give me a pen and paper. Write down on the pen and paper, I go, "Get me out of here." And showed to my brother Cam. And you make this happen. Get me out of here. He's looking at me like, "What do you want me to do?" I couldn't walk. My leg had activated in the coma. So I couldn't walk with that. One eye's wonky as hell. I'm hooked up to 13 tubes and noses. So it was a pretty startling and pretty sobering realization that life is, throwing me a pretty big curveball here. And I slowly realized that, like, this isn't fair this happened, but now I've got to navigate this change and adapt to this environment that I've been faced and climb back up. But that's been fueled by motivation, been fueled by purpose, been fueled by drive. To give you an indication of motivation, the way the nurse got me talking again, took me down to the park. She sat me in front of these kids playing football, soccer across the park. She goes, "Dan, those kids across the park, they don't think you're good enough to talk, Dan. They don't think you're good enough to talk." I found out pretty quickly that's a trigger for me. And they yelled across the park some profanities. I'll spell you and your team today.
Hmm.
I found out what motivates me, proving you wrong. But grinding, arduous fights to get back to life. In order to walk, I wear a splint on my left leg. Splint's like a cast, designed to gently tease the leg muscle back into shape. The first night I wore the splint through the night, no issue, no stress. This will be easy. I thought this will be easy. Boy, was I wrong. The second night, after 20 minutes, it was painful. After 30 minutes, it was dreadful. After 40 minutes, it was unbearable. I buzzed the nurse. "Take the splint off my leg, please. I can't handle the pain." But I told her, tomorrow we're doing this for an hour. I'm going to walk her. I can handle the pain. Big talk. So the third night, they wrap the leg, tied off at the ankle. Give me the clicker, the nurse call button. They go patrol the Wilson ward. And the Wilson ward was an L shape, so short on this side, longer on this side, right? Short on this side, long on this side.
Hmm.
Leave me in a hospital room that smells like a hospital room can smell. Sanitized, sterilized. It's clean, but you're wondering what sort of atrocities have been committed to the guys that let me asked this. After 10 minutes, the leg's painful. After 20 minutes, the leg's dreadful. After 30 minutes, the leg's unbearable. I started passing the clicker back and forth, trying to distract myself from the pain. So Thomas, as you can see, I'm wearing an eye patch today. That's to counteract the double vision I've got from the brain injury. Wasn't wearing this at the time, so I'm just groping at its clicker. As the pain ratchets up, my throats got more enthusiastic until eventually, inevitably, I dropped the clicker and it lands on the hard aluminum floor 3.5 feet down the ground. "Shh, sugar," I say. Thomas, I didn't say sugar. I look over the edge of the bed. The clicker that is on the floor looking back at me. If I get that clicker, I can stop this pain. I can end this monstrosity.
Hmm.
Only problem was, if I fall from that height, I might break my arm. In fact, I figured about a 50-50 chance of me breaking my arm. A coin flip, not the best odds. I changed tack. I'm trying to untie this one, but it's tied up in the ankle, not the hip. I can't reach that far down. I'm not that flexible. Help. Help, I know. The word the wolves was an L shape, right? Short on this side, long on this side. Short on this side, long on this side. They're at the far end of the ward. They can't hear me on for help. I decided to flip the coin. Drop down and grab the clicker. Even if I break my arm, split's gotta come with like this. Priority number 1, 2, and 3. Lower myself to the edge of the bed, and I crash down in heat. Blankets, wires, cables, all I go. The arm holds. and I hammered the clicker, expecting the nurse to come bursting into the room like the bats had been put up. They kind of stroll in 5 minutes later. What you doing on the floor, love? First of all, I say. That's a fantastic British accent there. Where'd you say you're from again? Now, in all truth, Thomas, I didn't say this, but I shouldn't see this one down my leg, please. I'll tell you all about this. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to that matters. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to that matters. The reason why I told you the story is I learned 3 lessons from this experience. The first lesson being, probably most evidently, let's not pass the clicker back and forth. That's a bad idea. First lesson. Second lesson was let's have a splint tip at the hip, not the ankle. That way I can untie this should this happen going forwards. Third lesson was let's always be solutions oriented for this move forwards. When things go sideways in life, which sure as you're born they will, focus on a solutions-based approach. How do you resolve your issue? How do you fix your problem? And with the help of the splint, I got started to walk in the hall with the Wilson on the Zimmer frame. Then I moved to the Ferrari. Ferrari was a walker and Ferrari racing red, so I'm going faster here. I'm picking up speed. Then I moved up to naked walks. Now, what's a naked walking mask? I'm walking without sporter aids. I'm walking naked. When I told friends I went for a naked walk that day, they were so perplexed by this notion that I loved their reaction. I kept it going. Then came time to walk in Tooting Broadway. So, Thomas, can I ask you, have you been to London, England?
I have been to London, England, but before we can go into that point, just sorry for interruption over here.
Okay.
You, from the time that 4 weeks of coma, but prior to that, how were you as a person? Were you as driven, as motivated, as inspirational about what you wanted to push yourself to be? How was it prior to that?
Yeah, I mean, I was a pretty driven guy. I moved to Sweden to do a master's, and then moved to London without a job. Slept on the floor for my friend's floor for 3 months, 4 months while I got a job underway. When I made my mind up about something, I make it happen. And those lessons certainly helped me understand that through hard work, through dedication, through focus, I can accomplish what I want to accomplish and achieve my goals. But it takes an unquestionable amount of work and work ethic and commitment to the cause and just drive to make this work. It's
Okay,
not easy, but it's simple to think this way. Simple meaning that you make the decision to choose what you want to do, and then the work's the hard part. That's not the easy. That's not. It's simple to do that. It's easy, but there's simple, not easy, right?
okay, great. So, congratulations on that. But from what I have read about you, Dan, is that even after there was a rebound, there was still a time wherein life threw another adversity sooner than you expected. What happened during that time?
Yeah. So let's fast forward a year. I'm back to work after a lot of after a year of rehab, 6 months of rehab, occupational therapy, vocational therapy, speech and language therapy. I'm back to work 2.5 days a week, 3.5 days a week. I'm turning and burning, Thomas.
Hmm.
And I had a setback. And by setback, I mean I was found unconscious in my flat by my mom. The shunt that's in my brain had blocked the hydrocephalus or water on the brain. So I woke up the next day in the hospital. The beeping noise, the heart rate monitor going off behind me, beep, beep, beep. What happened? What happened? What happened? Well, Dan, you had a second setback. What do you mean? The shunt that's in my brain had blocked. It's very rare, they told me, less than 10% of cases. Lucky me, I thought. But I've been working for a year to get back to the office, a year to put this behind me, a year to build my life back up. The carpet was pulled from underneath my legs. I describe my recovery like a W, Thomas. The first
Okay.
setback's down here. I kind of climb back up, halfway back up. The second setback occurs. It's not where the first one was, much lower. I call this the depths of the human experience, where your hopes and dreams get snickered at, you're laughed at. You thought you had a chance, but you ain't going nowhere. We got you right back where we want you. It took everything in my mindset pure to keep myself focused on the prize of what I want to accomplish and do, and build myself back up from that rock bottom mentality. Because rock bottom, hey man, that's bedrock.
Okay. Wow. So If you look back, by the congratulations on the journey that you have come across, and then you bounce back exactly about when I talk about my resilience, is that it's not just getting up and dusting, it's rising above. And that's where I talk about resilience plus rise. But what I just heard, Dan, there were a few critical factors that allowed you to rise, whether we're calling it like the phoenix or whether you're talking about, hey, life, I will show what it's how to live on my terms. If you were supposed to take maybe around the top three elements that allowed you to break the boundaries, break the shackles, break the chains, what would that be?
A mindset of better than yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in my life distills down to better than yesterday. 1% better every day compounds over 365 over the course of the year.
Okay.
Tinker, modify, build. Second one would be acceptance. Acceptance is a word that slaps for many people because it sounds cold, it sounds disingenuous, it sounds heartless. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, if you don't accept what's happened to you, you can't improve it. Wishing something did not happen is not an accurate way to resolve it or improve it.
Okay.
And the last one would be probably stoicism. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters. Keeping that in the back of your mind, no matter what happens in your life, and understanding that things happen in life out of your control and within your control. I focus on what's in my control and I navigate that. The rest I punt. Those are my
Okay.
top three, Thomas.
Wow. That's powerful. So, when we talk about the journey from there to now, how different are you living your life?
Well, look, with the brain injury, there's lingering stuff, right? I've got fatigue issues. I've got, I'm more impulsive. I'm more direct. I'm less filtered than I was in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I wake up every day with intention. I start a morning routine every day that I do. Wake up early, exercise, shower in the shower cold, meditate. I armor up for the day. And I'm tinking with this morning routine to get me better than yesterday because it's been through trial and error, right? I've tinkered with this to develop it and improve it over, podcasts, Tim Ferriss, Rich Roll, listen to these guys about how they do morning routines, how they armor up for the day and be their best selves. So I've got limited bandwidth now. My battery's about 75% compared to yours. And I'm not intentional, that battery drains very fast. So I've got to be very active and intentional in my day to make it work and make this work as best I can. And I'm not sparing the horses now, Thomas. I'm caning this down the hill. The wheels are wiggling all hell. We're going full send, brother. We're going full send.
That's quite intense. And you still keep on to it. And just a moment over here is that it's not only that, okay, you were in UK, but you took a leap of faith or what it was to come to Canada and recreate a new life over here. How has that been? And what was the motivation for you to know, I mean, do that you would succeed or you would rise in doing something like this?
Well, I'm originally from Vancouver, so I moved over there for a job in 2011.
Okay.
Worked at Hootsuite for 10 years in London, professional services, so post-sale training clients on the platform. And then decided after lockdown that London was not a place I wanted to be long term and moved back to
Mhm.
Vancouver. And when I moved back to Vancouver, I worked for Hootsuite for another year and then unfortunately got let go from that job, part of a corporate restructuring, wrong side of a spreadsheet, and went for a boozy lunch. Decided that day I'm a motivational speaker, which means I need a computer tomorrow.
Okay.
And off to the races I went. Acceptance, the faster you get to acceptance, the faster you can improve your law, right? That took an
Mhm.
afternoon to come to acceptance. This first two setbacks took a lot longer than a week of an afternoon to get this acceptance, but I know through my experience that if I wish something was different, it doesn't change the fact that it's not different. It's still there the next
Okay,
day.
super. That's quite a bit of learning. So, Dan, just so guys, all to all the listeners, I'll be putting out Dan's contact details as well as his podcast, etc., in the comments below. So do have a look onto it, because what we just had a talk now was that was nothing short of inspirational. Absolutely, man's love to survive, more than survive, to thrive. If I know that you're a keynote speaker, if you were asked to say few suggestions for people to rise above, because when I talk about my resilience rise, what I've realized and what must have seen is that people are existing, people are going through their day to day stuff. But if you have to tell them, you know what, you can make life to live, what would you suggest or what would you advise them that there are around five or six or seven elements that could help them to be more of them?
3 words:
Sure.
better than yesterday. In all facets of your life, improve to incrementally improve that day after day, week after week, year after year.
Mhm.
Small incremental improvements over time compound. Over the course of the year, that's 365. But everything I'm doing in my life, I'm tinkering with, I'm adapting, I'm failing at. Get comfortable with failure.
Mhm.
Because failure is a teacher. Failure is first attempt in learning, as my friend Rial says. And I fail all the time now. Less so now than I did in the past, but I'm trying this out. I'm seeing what works for me. I'm trying this on. And by failure, I learn and adapt and pivot, and I adapt my approach to not fail the next time. Better than yesterday, some advice I give you a group. And the last one I give you one is acceptance.
Okay.
Accepting your situation. Acceptance is not a weak term. It's not like resigning yourself to the fact this happened. It's actually empowering yourself to improve. It's saying, this is the new terms. How can I adapt to this new environment now? If you don't accept it, you can't improve what's not there. By accepting, you bring it to life and you say, hey, how can I modify this new set of circumstances? How can I adjust my vibe to fit the new acceptance piece? The acceptance, you're just wishing it was different. It's not real. Acceptance is very powerful, but it's very abrasive as well. It slaps. It's a tough word to hear because you don't know my story, Dan. You're right, I don't know your story, but I can tell without a shadow of a doubt, acceptance is the most important thing you can get through your mind, and
Okay.
better than yesterday.
Wow. And the way I've just heard you is that you're going through this element of non-stop. I had mentioned that you are also in podcast, but I believe there is a pause at this point of time. Is there a reason?
Yeah, I'm trying to get the speaking business off the ground now. Once it gets rolling, I want to get the podcast back up and running. The podcast is called Play Loose, Look Tight, Document the Process Life After. Um, it's quite a weird title. Let me just explain what the title means to your group so you're
Okay.
not confused. It's a life mantra in 4 words. Play loose, look tight. Play loose, joie de vivre. Have fun. Play is the first word by intention. Commercially, you want to look tight. Be on purpose, on time with your dress and demeanor. It's a life mantra in 4 words that I live by. Play loose, look tight.
Okay. Fantastic. So you got a podcast starting. What else is there in the horizon that you have been working towards?
More consistent speaking gigs. I spoke last month in Kelowna. Got a very positive response there. I think we had 98% of the Talk It Out survey said they love the talk. One person didn't find it valuable, but that's because I talk about acceptance and words that are a bit more abrasive to hear. If you're going through a hard time and you're not doing well right now, and I tell you to accept it, you're not going to like my talk. But I can tell you that if you're not doing well in life, you're maybe not accepting something that's a reality that's not something you're like living and experiencing. Like, you get to do this, right? You get to do this. You get to live, to fail, to love, to lose. Every day you get to do this. And if you can shift your mindset to that approach, life becomes very simple, life becomes very beautiful. And you start riding the waves that are there. Motivation, caring, love. Like it's just like stoicism is quite big in my life now, Thomas.
Okay.
And I use stoicism a lot to showcase the value that that perspective can have and control the controllables. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to the matters. To help me navigate this change in a way that's helpful and meaningful. Those hard days, I can think to myself, can I control this? If yes, do something about it. If no, I punt it immediately. I don't stress about stuff that doesn't have my control. I worry about what's in my realm of control. And that's how me live a life that's meaningful, helpful, and positive.
Wonderful. That's amazing. Just being mindful of the time, Dan. Is there anything else? I mean, there was beautiful takeaways about be better than yesterday and acceptance. In fact, those are very, very powerful. But is there any other learnings that you would like to impart before we can conclude the session?
Yeah, they say the odds of you being a human being are 400 trillion to 1, right? 400 trillion to 1. That means you're more likely to win the lotto 10 times in your lifetime than you are to have a life in the first place.
Wow. Okay.
I'm only Dan MacQueen because of the lipids of my DNA. Without it, I'm not me, and I wouldn't change myself for the world. So remind yourself, you get to do this. What an honor and privilege it is to live a life in the first place. 400 trillion to 1, 14 zeros, they say. So don't whinge about it, don't whine about it. You get to do this. Reframe your obstacles as opportunities, and acceptance above all else. But better than yesterday is how you navigate that and get to that point of acceptance.
Super. I mean, that was just amazing. So, guys, what we just saw, or the conversation that we had, that again, I would say was nothing short of being inspirational. Even after the surgeries, weeks in coma, months in rehab, wherein he had not only learned how to walk, talk, or as he mentioned, even smile, what we saw was his grit, his perseverance, and his resilience to relearn everything that he once knew. There was no map, but what I heard was just the fact. If you remember the story about the clicker calling the nurses, but it was just a path, a grueling path of recovery. The rehab exercises, the rebuilding of his life, and most importantly, what we just heard was the strategies. It's not only about your own self, but Dan is a keynote speaker that would help you and your team. You got to remember better than yesterday, achieve your goals, being grateful, one step at a time. This is nothing short of an action oriented life. We go through the motions, but when he talks about 14 trillion, what are you doing as one of those 14 trillion to make a difference? Dan, I just what we heard was changing your perspective can activate your resilience. Thank you very much for your space and time. Thank you for being on Resilience Plus Rise, the podcast.
Appreciate you, Thomas. Thanks for having me on the show.